After 10,000 years. Another champion came out, which means that finally League's universe is getting a new piece of its lore. And don't worry, we'll talk about the new Mordekaiser soon. Though first, we have to go through our new favorite depressive character. Sorry, Vex. The thing is, throughout all the teasers and the voice lines, many people wondered, how come Hwei has so many demonic references all around him? From the ever-present eyes and teeth, to the demonic hands, to the fact that he's all about emotions. Well, with the release of his bio, we were hoping to get a bit more information on that. But what we got was a confirmation that there are no demonic references. That's right, the lack of demonic references was intended. Which makes me quite sad, to be honest. I really liked that mysterious side of his story. But now, since there are no demons to be found here, what is carrying Hwei's story? Let's find out as we dive into his bio. And because the likelihood is that Hwei will probably not get a color story, and because the bios are decently long, we can go through the story word by word so that no details escape us. So let's get on it. In northwest Ionia, the island of Hwei once stood beautiful and serene. Among its golden sands, seasonal bazaar, and quaint mill town sat the Temple of Hwei, an ancient and renowned conservatory for the arts. So, immediately I have to pause here because my very first theory got debunked already. I thought Hwei would be from the south of Ionia, because that's where we have the lifeless island where some kind of a catastrophe happened. You know, the one that looks like it is covered with golden sand, as was teased in the story. But also, this would be where Jhin was for the majority of his story. So I thought everything was kinda lining up there. Which is why it is crazy to see that right at the beginning, we learned that the island of Hwei, where Hwei is from, is in northwest Ionia. Or in other words, on the other side of the entire continent. It is still not shown on the map, but at least we know it's somewhere there. And I was wrong. Anyway, Lukai Hwei was born to inherit this temple. Kind and precautious, Hwei spent his childhood putting to canvas his wild daydreams, which exaggerated the world around him into surreal, fantastical sights. He knew these visions differed from reality, but through them he saw life itself as art. So connected was Hwei to the shades of the world, that even his eye color shifted in hue to reflect his mind and mood. Hwei expressed his vibrant imagination through paint magic, a medium that influenced the emotions of its audience. As such, it required strict control and discipline, lest it overpower both mental perceptions and bodily sensations. Among its current practitioners, those unable or unwilling to control their act endangered themselves and the community and were banished from Hwei. Here we have another interesting thing to mention. According to this story, the paint magic has the ability to affect the beholder's emotions, which some of you may realize is somewhat similar to Sona, whose songs are also a form of magic that affects the listeners. But not only can she play music that forces emotions into her audience, but in her case, her music can also make people dance so hard that their bones break. The cool thing about this is that Sona is an Ionian orphan who was transferred to Demacia during the Noxian invasion. So it is likely that both Hwei and Sona practice a similar kind of artsy magic, one that can affect the emotions of their audience. And of course, both of which would have its roots in Ionia. Now, back to the story. Despite these precepts, young Hwei indulged his imagination. In a demonstration for the Temple Masters, he recreated Hwei's sea. As paint flowed around the canvas, however, his control ebbed. Emotions crashed through him, wild and fathomless as an ocean, and he surrendered himself to its beauty. His vision turned black. His last memory, the awestruck masters drowning. Hwei awoke days later, surrounded by his masters, alive but infuriated. They would not exile the temple's heir, but they stressed his responsibilities. Hwei was horrified but fascinated by the depths of his power, and he craved to see more. Thus, by day, he upheld Koyan's conventions, but alone at night, he pushed the boundaries, driven to explore the extent of his power. In time, this practice focused the intensity of Hwei's imagination, allowing him to manifest a palette that flowed with magical paint. Well into adulthood, Hwei mastered his craft, and with passion and humility, he prepared to inherit his birthright, surrounded by respect and affection of his peers. But part of his mind remained forever shrouded at nightfall, and so it remained until the temple received a visiting artist, Jhin. Over a gilded summer, Hwei accompanied Jhin, guiding him around Koyan. They often exchanged their creative perspectives, and respecting their differences, Hwei recognized Jin's virtuosity and valued their time together. But the night before Jin's departure, the man challenged Hwei. Jhin sensed that the pieces Hwei showed others were forced facades, and he wanted to see a real performance. Hwei tried to deny it, but his eyes betrayed him. Floored by the years spent creating meaningless art, his imagination begged catharsis. So Hwei painted. Decades of practice guided his brush. The night came alive, colored by brilliant infinity of his mind. Emotions washed over him, harmonious and visceral, and Hwei welcomed them. Sharing these forbidden visions for another exhilarated him and illuminated the powers of his art. Connection, inspiration, and unfettered creation. Jhin witnessed it all. Afterward, with eyes alight and tone inscrutable, he said farewell, stating he would be moving on tomorrow to watch the lotuses bloom. At dawn, Hwei and his fellow artists awoke to a series of tragedies. First, 4 historic paintings destroyed. Second, an arrangement of 4 bodies, the masters that Hwei had almost killed in his youth. Third, the fiery eruption at the temple's 4 lowest floors. Amid the flames, Hwei imagined the air electric with colors. Everything that lived within him bled outward. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. It was art. Realizing its dark potential of destruction, devastation, and torment, Hwei felt the same horror and fascination he had in his youth. The temple quickly collapsed into ruins, with Hwei emerging as its only survivor. Exhausted and guilt-ridden, he mourned. Yet his imagination overflowed, reliving every moment of the disaster. During the day, Hwei and the villagers from the mill town held burials. At night, he revisited the ashen-gray wreckage and painted, his palette taking the shape of Koyan's crest, the same worn over his heart. On one such night, Hwei found the remnants of a trap beneath the rubble, one petaled like a lotus flower. Realizing who had wreaked this havoc, a cascade of emotions engulfed Hwei. Fear, sorrow, betrayal, awe. A question burned within him. Why? But why did he want the answer? Or would it be safer to suppress this need? He could stay here with his people, as their hair helped them rebuild, or, bearing little more than his paintbrush and palette, Hwei left his island and his people behind. In the time since, Hwei has learned that the answers he seeks arise through revealing the full extent of his art to others. He tracks down nefarious individuals in Ionia's darkest corners, unleashing scenes of suffering upon them to understand his own well of pain. Yet he also reaches out to Ionia's victims, fellow witnesses, to create shared tranquility and reflection. Both the relentless artist rising from the ashes and the kind-hearted man from a once peaceful isle. Hwei faces the conflicting hues of Ionia and his own imagination. As he spirals deeper into the shadows, he lights a path, mind brimming with possibility. Which shade of himself will triumph, however, is yet to be seen. And that was Hwei's bio. Unfortunately, yes, there were no demons here. However, We should also point out that there was nothing that would debunk the demonic theory. Remember that Ionia is all about the Arcana and Azakana, or demons and lesser demons. So while the potential invocation of demonic powers may not be the center of Hwei's story, that theory is still very much alive. But here's also another awesome thing to mention. Did you notice what Jhin had done? First, he destroyed 4 historic paintings. Second, he mutilated 4 of Hwei's masters. Third, he lit up the 4 bottom floors of the temple. And then he left out step 4, which is weird because we are talking about Jhin. Well, the likelihood is that Hwei is Jin's step 4. With this traumatic experience, he created a living weapon that can now create its own lotuses. So I am pretty sure the storyline of Hwei and Jhin is still going somewhere. Lastly, we need to mention one more thing way too many people believe in. And that's mostly the casual audience that may not really care about lore that much. Somehow, for some reason, people think that Hwei is Jin's rival, and that Hwei wants to kill him for revenge. Kinda like what happened with Zed. But that's not actually true. Hwei is currently looking for Jhin because he simply wants answers. He was in awe by what Jhin had done, while also being intimidated and terrified. Not to mention that, as you saw, Hwei is all about self-improvement. That's something he wouldn't achieve by killing Jhin. So in reality, we don't really know what Hwei is gonna do once he finds Jhin. We just know he's looking for him to get answers, not necessarily to kill him. Which is something that was confirmed both in this story and in the previous posts. It's just that up until that fateful night, he had never seen anyone practice an artsy kind of magic in a similar way. So when people start talking about Hwei avenging his masters, feel free to correct them. Though, this also made me wonder. Since Jin's art is similar to Hwei's, would that mean that Jhin should classify as a mage? Wait! Is that why Jin's lotuses have AP scaling? It's lore accurate!